Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Chord. Now, right through this month on The Chord, let me tell you, we are in July. It's the time when a big time band came out in 2000 from the UK. In a time where Oasis was going on to experimental sounds, you also had bands like Radiohead who were doing their own thing. People were desperate for something new to come from the world of rock, and Coldplay exploded on the scene. After surfacing in 2000 with their first track called Yellow that completely blew the world of rock and roll apart, they steadily went multi-platinum with Parachutes, the album that they first came out with, also went to win the Grammys. But their music was called almost anthemic. That is, basically they had this kind of sound, the dark feel to it, but also something that made you feel elated when you listened to what they had to talk about. But it's all about Chris Martin, the guy who really formed this band together with three more of his friends, and eventually when they met up in university, decided to just sit down and play some music, and that's what they did. Little did they know in university that they're going to become this huge band called Coldplay that will be playing to sell out crowds in huge operatic theaters and also stadiums. Well, Coldplay was born together in university. Chris Martin, Buckland, Berryman and Champion, these four guys came together and formed what we today know as Coldplay. But it was Chris Martin from a very young age, at the age of 7, actually mastered the piano, kept on playing, writing his lyrics. He knew that no matter what he does, he wants to become a musician, and that's what he did. Now, when he met the other three people in this team, the bassist was basically a guy who loved indie rock, decided to stay with bass because that's what he liked. You look at the lead guitarist, Champion. Now, this guy is different. He really wanted to do only one thing, and that is to play heavy riffs, because he was influenced by people like Clapton and then also people like Hendrix, and that's what he did. But the drummer did not know what he was going to do because he knew a lot of instruments. He could play almost anything. It's only when he auditioned for Coldplay that he decided, okay, I know all the instruments. What I'm going to become? I'm going to become a drummer for one of the biggest bands in the world eventually. Now, the University College of London, where all these four guys met up, was kind of breeding ground for them to kind of understand the kind of music they want to play. One wanted to get into industrial rock, the other one just wanted to play stuff like Travis used to. But then they're trying to figure out what their sound is all about. So they came up with the first EP called Safety, which had only about 500 pressings, didn't do too much. But when Brothers and Sisters, the second EP that came out, also had about 500 pressings, not too much happened. The Blue EP only came up after Parlophone Records decided to give these guys a chance to really hone their music within the studio, and that's what happened. The media gave them a thumbs up, and people started calling Coldplay the next Travis. They started small, but today they're one of the biggest bands ever to come out of the UK, apart from the Beatles, is what people say. Four boys coming together and becoming men in the University College of London, and then figuring out that what they want to do is not really study, but they want to play music, and that's what they did. But in 2000, what happened was Parlophone Records kind of realized that these guys have got solid potential because they sounded a lot like Travis, did not have the same kind of sound when it came to Radiohead, was playing music that was absolutely different when it came to bands like Oasis, which were experimenting with different kind of music at that point of time. The world was greedy for music. They went into the studio and for most of 2000 just sat there playing their songs again and again till the time Parachutes came out and hit the airwaves. Once that happened, Yellow went platinum, the band itself and Parachutes went multi-platinum, and in November of the same year, everything was released in America. Eventually, the sales in America would even surpass that in the UK, and Coldplay was born. Now, riding on the strength of Parachutes, these guys had not gone and toured yet. They wanted to see if their experimental sound was really something that the people were going for, or was it just the lyrics. And so in 2001, A Rush of Blood to the Head came out, and then they knew that they had arrived on the big scene, decided to tour also. But not till the time that songs like The Scientist became so big that wherever they went, apart from just having Yellow, Scientist hit the radio waves, everybody fell in love with it, and it was a much more darky, edgy feel that you would get if you hear every single song from Rush of Blood to the Head. Now, it's a funny story when you're multi-talented because you really don't know what to do with yourself, right? Because you can play a number of instruments, you're good at all of them. Which one do you choose? Because you love all of them. Now, that was the problem when it came to the drummer Champion, because he did not know what he wanted to do. Of course, Berryman knew what he wanted to do. You had Chris Martin, who knew that he wanted to only play the keys and then sing. And so when the time came for an audition, the lead singer was already taken, Chris Martin. It was his band anyway that he's going to call it Coldplay. the bassist was taken, and then you had the lead guitarist was also taken. So the only guy left now to be auditioned for was a drummer. And our man Champion just walks in and says, well, I'm a drummer, can I audition? He said, yes. He came on and became the drummer of one of the biggest bands in the world, Coldplay. If this is not luck, what else could it be? Because I think God had written somewhere in a small footnote that 4 people of different parts of UK will come and study in the same university, become classmates, and then decide to become one of the biggest bands in the world called Coldplay. I think Parlophone Records also had their finger on the pulse because they were the first ones to listen to Coldplay and tell them, we want you and no one else. Well, they had a good year. Apart from touring around the world and doing all that they did to play more music, after Parachutes came out and then Rush of Blood to the Head, they decided to push the edge a little more with X and Y. And when X and Y came out, let me tell you, people were hooked line and sinker, in love with Coldplay. So these guys became big very fast, but then there's one thing that happens when you become big too soon, that some negativity will come into play. But thankfully for now, they haven't disbanded. Coldplay is still here to rock your world in rock and roll. Catch me next week, same place, same time for more on The Chord and only on Rosebowl.